The entertainment world was left in utter disbelief when reports broke out that South Korean A-listers Kim Woo-bin and Bae Suzy had gone missing following a helicopter crash deep within the Amazon rainforest. What began as a private getaway turned into a harrowing survival story unlike anything the public had imagined. Both stars had taken time off their busy filming schedules to travel discreetly to Brazil for a short adventure, said to include a secret documentary shoot about endangered wildlife. But tragedy struck when their helicopter reportedly lost control due to sudden engine failure during a routine flyover above the dense Amazon canopy. Moments before the crash, the pilot managed to send a single distress signal. Then, radio silence. Witnesses in a nearby tribal village claimed they saw a chopper spiraling down, its blades slicing the air with terrifying speed before it disappeared beneath the thick veil of rainforest. The impact shook the earth. Animals scattered. A plume of smoke curled into the sky. Inside the wreckage, Kim Woo-bin, blood trailing down his forehead, awoke to the sharp crackling of fire. Beside him, Bae Suzy was unconscious, her arm twisted awkwardly beneath her. Despite his pain and disorientation, Woo-bin crawled over, lifted a shard of metal pinning her down, and pulled her free just as the fuel tank erupted in flames. Together, bleeding and bruised, they stumbled away from the burning wreckage, holding onto each other with trembling limbs. With no map, no food, and minimal supplies, Kim Woo-bin and Bae Suzy were forced to navigate one of the most dangerous terrains on Earth, home to venomous snakes, wild jaguars, and unpredictable rivers. Days passed. The jungle was merciless. Heat, humidity, and bloodthirsty mosquitoes surrounded them at every step. Yet amid the chaos, their chemistry and teamwork began to shine. Bae Suzy, having grown up fascinated by nature documentaries, recognized edible fruits and even fashioned a makeshift water filter using charcoal and leaves. Kim Woo-bin, with his towering strength, built shelter from broken branches and vines. He used a shard of metal to fashion a crude machete, clearing paths through thick foliage and defending them from prowling predators at night. On the fifth night, the unthinkable happened. A wild boar crashed into their camp. Woo-bin tackled it instinctively, wrestling the beast with sheer desperation. Suzy, in a moment of brilliance, set fire to a nearby bundle of dry leaves, scaring the animal off with the smoke. Exhausted and shaking, they collapsed in each other's arms, unsure whether to laugh or cry. As the days bled into weeks, the line between survival and surrender grew thin. But what surprised both of them more than the perils of the jungle was the emotional journey they found themselves on. Around a campfire made with borrowed lightning, Suzy had salvaged a lens from the helicopter to spark flames. They began opening up. Suzy admitted she'd always felt overshadowed, boxed in by fame, longing for the freedom to live simply and without expectation. Woo-bin revealed how his past illness had changed him, how the brush with death made him fear he hadn't truly lived. "I used to think survival was about staying alive," he murmured. "But now I realize, it's about living with purpose." Their bond deepened not just as co-stars or friends, but as two souls stripped of fame, privilege, and pretense, facing the world raw and vulnerable. The forest had swallowed them whole, but in that darkness, they found a strange light. One unforgettable night, their peace was shattered by the unmistakable growl of a jaguar. The animal, sleek and silent, circled their camp with glowing eyes. Suzy stood frozen. Woo-bin picked up a flaming branch and shouted, trying to appear larger. But the jaguar didn't flinch. In that heart-stopping moment, Suzy did something bold. She stepped forward, slowly, and began making soft, rhythmic sounds she'd once learned in a documentary about calming aggressive big cats. The jaguar paused, cocked its head, then slinked away silently, vanishing into the jungle like a ghost. Woo-bin stared at her in disbelief. "Remind me never to mess with you." They laughed, tears in their eyes, hearts racing from the sheer madness of it all. By the third week, hope was fading. But on the 21st day, they discovered a river wide, muddy, and fast. Believing it might lead to civilization, they built a raft from logs tied with jungle vines. The journey downstream was treacherous. Rapids tossed them like rag dolls. Alligators appeared, eyes above water. They were forced to dive into the water at one point to escape a collapsing section of their raft. Clutching each other against the current, They drifted into a vast opening where, miraculously, they saw signs of life: a broken canoe, distant smoke, and finally, a figure standing on the shore. It was a local guide, part of a search party formed after satellite images captured the wreckage days earlier. They had made it. They were found. The world erupted in disbelief and celebration. Fans cried. Media outlets across Asia, the Americas, and Europe ran 24-hour coverage of their miraculous survival. The South Korean president personally called their families. International rescue teams applauded their resilience. Kim Woo-bin and Bae Suzy, airlifted to a hospital in Manaus, were dehydrated and weak but smiling. Cameras caught the moment Woo-bin, in a hospital bed, squeezed Suzy's hand and whispered something that made her cry. Rumors swirled about their relationship status. Were they just friends? Had their ordeal awakened something deeper? Neither confirmed nor denied it, but their eyes said enough. Weeks after their return, the pair held a joint press conference. Rather than focus on fame, they used their platform to raise awareness for Amazon deforestation and indigenous protection. Their ordeal became the center of a globally-streamed documentary titled Survive the Wild: The Kim Woo-bin and Bae Suzy Story. In the final scene of the documentary, they stand at the edge of a forest in South Korea, side by side, looking out into the trees. It took losing everything, Suzy says, to find what matters most. Kim Woo-bin smiles and adds, and sometimes, the wild shows you what love really means. From stardom to survival, Kim Woo-bin and Bae Suzy's story is more than a tale of endurance. It's a raw, breathtaking journey through danger, vulnerability, and the healing power of connection. It's a reminder that sometimes, when the world strips everything away, what remains is real, unshakable, and life-defining. They walked out of the jungle not just as survivors, but as warriors of the soul. And the world will never forget. From the moment their helicopter went down, Kim Woo-bin and Bae Suzy's fight to survive became a chilling reality. This is a deeper dive into the mind-blowing chaos, horror, and emotional intensity of the first 48 hours in the Amazon jungle. As the helicopter spiraled violently toward the dense jungle canopy, the sound of snapping branches and screaming engines filled the air. Suzy's hands were clenched tightly around her seatbelt. Kim Woo-bin tried to call out to her, but his voice was swallowed by the roar of the spinning rotors. Time felt like it slowed. Just before the crash, they locked eyes, no words, just shared terror. Boom! The helicopter hit the ground with a brutal force that sent metal tearing and glass exploding in every direction. The left rotor snapped off and ricocheted into the trees like a monstrous boomerang. Inside the wreckage, the silence that followed was deafening. Smoke curled up like the fingers of a ghost. Kim Woo-bin came to first, his head pounding, the smell of leaking fuel thick in the air. He tasted blood. Dazed, he glanced over and saw Suzy slumped, her head against the cracked window, a deep gash across her temple. Despite a searing pain in his ribs, Woo-bin unbuckled himself and crawled to her. His vision was blurred, and every breath felt like a knife in his side. But he moved on instinct. He touched her neck, a pulse. Weak, but there. "Suzy," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "Hey, come on." Her eyelids fluttered. She groaned, confused. "What happened?" "No time. We have to get out, now." The scent of burning wires hit them next. A spark flared from the control panel. Flames licked at the shredded insulation. Woo-bin wrapped an arm around Suzy's waist and helped her out of the twisted cabin. Every second mattered. They stumbled into the green, the noise of the fire growing behind them. The wreckage erupted moments later, a thunderous blast that lit up the canopy like a bomb had gone off. A wave of heat swept over them, and both fell to the ground, panting and coughing. When they looked back, their only source of communication and safety was reduced to ashes. No signal. No flares. No food. Just the endless sea of green around them. "We're alone," Suzy whispered. But Woo-bin shook his head. "No. We're together." They spent their first hours limping away from the smoke column in case it attracted predators. Kim's arm was badly bruised, and Suzy's ankle throbbed every time she stepped down. The heat was suffocating. Sweat poured down their faces, mixing with blood and dirt. Mosquitoes descended like a black cloud. Susie ripped the sleeve off her shirt and wrapped it around her neck for protection. Wu Bin took a chunk of vine and smeared its sap across their exposed skin. He had once read about the plant's repellent properties during a film shoot in Thailand. Every sound made their hearts pound: the hiss of snakes, the distant shrieks of howler monkeys, the snapping of unseen branches. The jungle was alive, and it wasn't welcoming. As dusk approached, the air turned eerily quiet. They found a small clearing under the thick overgrowth where Wu Bin started collecting leaves and broken branches. Susie, though limping, helped with vines and palm fronds. Together, they fashioned a crude lean-to that barely shielded them from the night sky. "We need fire," Wu Bin said, frustrated. "But no lighter, no matches." Susie's eyes lit up. "My bracelet." She pulled off a silver bangle she always wore. It had a glass gemstone. Using the reflective surface and the last rays of sunlight, she angled it toward a pile of dry leaves. After several agonizing minutes of failure, a faint tendril of smoke curled upward. Then a flame. They both screamed in joy. That night, as they huddled beside the small fire, they didn't speak much. Their bodies ached. Their minds raced. Susie clutched a small, half-burned photo from her wallet, her family at a beach in Busan. Wu Bin stared at the stars peeking through the trees and tried to hold back tears. Just when they thought the worst had passed, the skies opened. Rain poured like an angry river from above, drenching them in seconds. Their fire was snuffed out instantly. Thunder cracked like gunshots, and lightning danced above the treetops. Susie screamed as a tree branch snapped and crashed beside them. Wu Bin shielded her with his body, pulling her deeper under the shelter, which now sagged and threatened to collapse. The temperature dropped rapidly. Susie's lips turned blue. Her body trembled uncontrollably. Without hesitation, Wu Bin wrapped his arms around her. "Stay with me," he whispered. "We're not going to die out here. I won't let us." They stayed like that through the night, soaked, freezing, and terrified, finding warmth in each other and strength in the silence. By morning, the storm had passed, but their challenges were far from over. Wu Bin's side was swollen. Susie's face was pale, and her movements slow. Hunger gnawed at them. But they rose. They walked. They fought. At one point, Susie nearly stepped on a bright yellow frog, the kind known to carry deadly toxins. Wu Bin grabbed her just in time, pulling her back. Later, they found a stream. Wu Bin checked the current and depth before guiding Susie across. As they drank from cupped hands, the sun reflected off the water like gold, and for a moment, just one moment, they felt alive again. That afternoon, they reached the edge of a cliff. Far below, they saw a bend in the river. Susie gasped, a flare mark on a distant rock. Someone had been there. It was too far to hike in one day, but it was the first sign of hope. As they sat on that cliff's edge, battered and burned by the sun, Wu Bin turned to Susie. "You saved me back there. With the fire. With your calm. I wouldn't have made it through that first night without you." Susie gave a weak smile. "Funny. I was going to say the same thing about you." Just as they began to descend the rocky slope, a low growl echoed behind them. They turned slowly. From the underbrush emerged a massive feline shape. A jaguar. Its yellow eyes locked on them. Muscles tensed. Breath low. And then, fade to black. To be continued. Subscribe and stay tuned for part 2.